Hello and welcome back to Arc Logos Podcast. This is your go-to show which focuses on well-being and lifestyle. I'm your host, Sherelle Wilson Morrison. Joining me are my beautiful co-hosts.
Rose Tabere.
Anita Pinto Young.
So we're thrilled today to be welcoming a guest online, Wayne Reid. Wayne, do you mind introducing yourself to the guest?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Yeah, my name is Wayne Reid. I'm a professional officer and social worker at BASW, the British Association of Social Workers.
Perfect. Lovely to have you.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate being invited and asked. And of course, I know you, Sherelle, from the Black and Ethnic Minority Professional Symposium, the BPS. So wicked to be here.
Perfect.
And Wayne knows me as well.
Okay, we can't forget Anita. Sorry, Wayne, you know Anita somehow.
Yes, I know Anita from the book Outlanders as well. She contributed with her story around Can I Speak? So yeah, again, we've not met properly. So really nice to be on this platform with you. And of course, Rose, we've not met before properly. Really nice to be in your company as well.
Perfect.
But I know a lot about you. I've read a lot about you.
Well, thank you kindly.
Lovely, yeah. Lovely. So we have to obviously amuse Anita, Wayne. So thank you so much for contributing to that. So before we kind of get to learn about Wayne and your career journey and a bit more about yourself, I thought I'd start with an icebreaker question. And it's going to be a nice one. Don't worry, because we're well-being.
Good, yeah. Got me twitching.
So if you can just share with us one self-care practice or activity that you do that helps you to refresh or to feel refreshed or to recharge.
First thing that comes to mind is running, really. That's my thing. I love running. I find that it just helps me to switch off and sort of like meditation in a way. I love music as well, so I always run with music. I hate it when my phone runs out of battery or headphones and whatnot, and I've got to have silence. I need the tunes. So yeah, running is my self-care practice. I'd recommend it to anyone who would listen.
Lovely. Running. Okay. Don't you like to run, Anita?
No, she
won't. No? Not your thing?
She's not okay.
No.
Not at all.
No.
Wonderful. Perfect.
What about you, yourself, Sherelle and Rose? Either of you two runners or run in the past?
I'll be honest with you. Running for me, unless I'm on the basketball court, I'm happy to do that. But treadmill, park runs, I'm sorry, Wayne. I
okay.
Join you on that.
No, not happening. Yeah, I know you're into basketball though, because you mentioned that to me before. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yourself, Rose?
Mine is walking.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I like walking as well.
Yeah. I last ran a mini marathon about 20 years ago, and that was it.
Okay. Yeah. Impressive.
I like walking.
Yeah. And where do you like to walk? In the sort of countryside and stuff, or?
No, it's more the local parks. Oh, I wish I could walk in. I wish I could take a walk in the country, not where I live, unfortunately.
Right.
Yes, we've got some really good Greenwich Park. Greenwich Park is lovely.
Yeah.
It's got this lovely hill that I love. The challenge of walking right up to the top.
Yeah. Oh, good.
There you go, Wayne. You have someone that can join you on your park runs by the sounds of it.
Yeah, well, I'm not a park runner, I'm a kind of, I just like to go by myself. I'm a bit antisocial when it comes to running. I'm just on a kind of tunnel vision kind of, mission. I get my socials elsewhere.
Perfect. No worries. Perfect. Well, as we said before, we're here to hear about your career journey. So that being said, my first question to you is, can you tell us, Wayne, about your career journey, please?
Okay, thanks for asking. Yeah, my career journey has been very diverse. It's been a sort of roller coaster, really. When I started out when I was sort of in my 20s in different office jobs, doing a lot of administrative roles in different companies. I'm trying to think, sort of like Norwich Union as it was at the time. I worked there for a period of time. But I lived really for the weekend, and it was a time of life when you could sort of leave one job on a Friday and be in another job on the Monday. That was sort of like 1997 Sheffield that I lived in. And I lived for the weekend and going out with my friends, kind of raving and stuff and doing a bit of DJing and just, sort of party. That was my priority. And I sort of ended up in a job working for a private fostering organisation. in their offices, doing the initial matching for children being referred from local authorities to foster placements, which the company I work for, they supported. I did the initial matching, got a bit of an insight into the role of what foster carers do, what social workers do. And that was like the first stepping stone for me into kind of like, wow, okay, there's this other world here, of just, this stuff. And then from there, it was just a kind of real roller coaster of moving from there to probation, doing more frontline work, working with repeat offenders, still quite young at that time. I was able to kind of relate, I think, to the young people that I was working with. I worked at the youth offending team also after that. So that period of my life was like criminal justice, youth justice, frontline, home visits, court work, going into court kind of in a suit, kind of really formal, only black guy there, having to advocate for different young people in very challenging circumstances, so being quite young and inexperienced myself, it was really kind of thrown into kind of deep end in a way, but good, and gave me lots of exposure to lots of different things. From there, kind of went to work for Sheffield Council, doing more mainstream social work roles, working with care leavers, and then sort of embarked on my I was supported by Sheffield Council to undertake my degree in social work. Did it the Open University route. So I worked alongside studying and having a young daughter at the time. I wouldn't recommend that combination to anybody. It was really, really tough, but managed to get through that. And my first qualifying job was working for a different private fostering agency, doing the supervising social worker role, supporting carers, doing the role that I initially did as an office worker. So come full circle. And so, that's a kind of whistle-stop tour of my career up to this point, or before joining BASW, really.
Amazing.
Nice. Wow. Okay. That's very extensive.
I know.
Definitely extensive.
That's the kind of me trying to fast forward it as well, kind of, just don't want to bore you, really, but there's probably a few things I've missed out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, we want to hear about it. So, I mean, I suppose what comes to mind for me is why social work? What made you decide social work was the thing?
I kind of didn't really. It just kind of worked out that way, for a long while. As I was saying, I was just kind of doing my job, trying to do the jobs that I was in, whether that was a youth offending team officer or frontline stuff working with care leavers. I really saw that as like, wow, my caseload, I was kind of overwhelmed by it. A lot of my colleagues were around me. The workload that we were working in leaving care, for example, changed at one point where we were then expected to work with unaccompanied asylum seeking children. And very few of us had that knowledge, but it was just like, I can't remember what year that was. I'm guessing, but maybe something like 2008, possibly. And it was just sort of like, there was that kind of expectation there. And that was kind of really quite overwhelming for me as well. So, it kind of chose me in that I was just in these jobs. I respected the job, I kind of wanted to do good, always been a bit of a do-gooder, and I happened to get paid for doing this job where I was helping other people, and I felt like that helped me to sleep well at night, thinking I've done my contribution there, for society. And then when I eventually qualified and went into that private fostering role, I mentioned, different organisation, I worked there for 8 years. Did everything from the initial visits of people who kind of expressed an interest in fostering, all the way through to assessing those people, taking them through the registration process, supporting them when they've got children and young people in placement, annual reviews and such. I'm sure, all three of you will be familiar with that. And that, again, in its own way was, kind of challenging, but very rewarding. Met some fantastic foster carers, really sort of feel proud of some of them. They were almost like an extension of I don't say my family because of professional boundaries, but being part of that orbit, I suppose, was just so kind of rewarding. So, yeah, really glad that I got there to do that job. And like I say, it found me social work, you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
believe in
yeah,
destiny and all that sort of things, and that was my destiny,
yeah,
really.
definitely. And
Mm.
everything that you've listed to me, it has involved working with people, all the professions that you have mentioned, probation,
Yeah.
working with foster carers, young people,
Mhm.
and all that. It's all involved people. You appear to be a people person. What is it about people that you like and you wanting to
Wayne
change?
laughs.
Yeah, I laugh because
Yeah.
I think my wife might say different, to be honest. I think my wife might say a people person. Come on. um, um,
Mm.
yeah, I don't know what it is. I think there's something just quite innate, I suppose, where um, I just get something from kind of trying to help people at the very least, and I know that's kind of seen as a bit woke or a bit left wing or however it might want to be labelled, do gooder.
Mm.
But that's just I just get something from that, and people. I think people do that anyway in their own different ways. This is just kind of my way of doing it, really. And yeah, it's been rewarding. I suppose I laughed before because I suppose personally I can be quite sort of reclusive. Really, I have my
Okay.
friends, close friends, and family. Um, but yeah, I am quite an introspective kind of reclusive person, and yeah, that's just my mo, really.
Oh, that's totally
Mm.
fine. And
Yeah.
and Wayne, so you've given us a bit of a context around your social work journey.
Mm,
And you mentioned part of your role is a professional officer for BASW. Just
yeah.
interested, if you care to share a bit more about that role, please.
Yes. So again, I'm really proud of that role. It's my current role, and I've been at BASW for coming up to about 8 years as well. The private fostering agency that I mentioned before that I worked for, that changed hands. I kind of felt I needed to go in a new direction. The job for BASW came up. I just applied on the off chance, thinking I don't even really know what this job is, if I'm honest, but it just looks really good in terms of, kind of the work with members, I suppose, and working with social workers and championing these kind of causes, and an organisation that's been around for a long time as well, since the uh, since 1970s. So yeah, I just think that for me, the role at BASW again was a kind of sort of destiny thing where it came at the right time for me, and it took me a good few years to work out, exactly what the role is, and I suppose I'm still learning as well. 8 years in, nearly, um, but it's been very clear, I suppose, in terms of the outcomes that we want around working conditions for social workers, around some of our campaigns around anti-poverty, homelessness, hospital discharge. Homes not hospitals. Um, I'm listing these things. Please do look at the BAS website and have a look. The 80/20 one, especially in terms of reversing that balance of or imbalance of social workers spending most of their time, 80% of their time, not kind of not working with frontline, service users, people with lived experience, people who rely on us basically, and who we sort of work in partnership with. Instead, we're only sort of spending 20% of our time with them. Um, so again, that kind of ethos really kind of resonated with me. And I suppose as I've been in the role, it's just kind of opened my eyes really to the kind of benefits of having BASW as part of the social work landscape.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah. Mm.
And I think you used the word champion in terms of describing your role with Haswell, and we definitely know you as a champion around things like anti-racism,
Hmm.
some of the work that we've seen you be involved in, things like the anthology, which we'll probably talk a little bit more about later. But I just wanted to find out, and in social work in the UK, one of the ethos of social work is around social justice.
Yeah.
Not something that I think everybody gets into, my own personal opinion. but just wondered what are some of the things that probably shaped your journey into being such a strong advocate and champion around things like anti-racism, for example.
Yeah. I mean, being black, obviously, in terms of
Yeah.
anti-racism, I suppose my unique experience in terms of being a black male from Sheffield specifically, there's very, very few of us compared to, let's say, black guys in Birmingham or London or, some of the other bigger
Yeah.
cities. Because of the accent, I think it is like metal grating on metal for some people. Other people warm to it. It's an acquired taste. You know what I mean? So for me, there's been sort of different barriers because of that. I suppose I joke about that, but there has been different barriers because of that. Being black, obviously, but also just kind of being a black male in social work. And quite often being in a female-dominated environment. And being a black male, there's all sorts of stereotypes about people like me. So, I suppose additional or different barriers to what there is for, other people, other colleagues. So things around social justice, I suppose it's something that just crystallized for me really around the time of the George Floyd murder, where I wouldn't have probably described myself as a social justice advocate before that. I obviously believed in social justice and I subscribed to it, that sort of idea. But I wasn't necessarily doing anything about it, if you know what I mean. I was just like, yeah, I agree with that if somebody was talking about that. Or if something happened and I thought it was wrong, like sort of, I don't know, some sort of disproportionate outcome for black people, I'd be like, oh, we're not surprised about this. But then all the stuff with George Floyd, kind of, I don't know what it was. I sort of had like an out of body experience, really, where, yeah, just found myself doing and saying things that I hadn't really done before or said before. And it was almost like, what do you call it? Sort of like a conscious stream of information, almost as if as I was taking it in, I was almost having to process it and then externalize it in some way. So yeah, we talk about social justice. That's been my avenue into it, really. And then from that, I know people probably would associate me with anti-racism primarily, and rightly so. But also, I do strongly believe in equality, and that might sound really cheesy, but I do really believe in it. So, as much as I talk about anti-racism, I also believe in intersectionality and other people's people's other identities that they have, sort of multiple identities. People aren't just black. They're also kind of male or female, or they're also in a certain socioeconomic class, or whatever. They do such certain jobs, things that identify them. And my I suppose a lot of what I've had to say has been primarily around race, but it has also tried to beef through that intersectional, kind of lens as well. So I hope that answers what you were saying there on social justice.
I know.
Yeah.
I think George Floyd was sort of an awakening for a lot of people. In terms of, like, I remember us as well at work, myself and Chevelle, co-delivering some training around anti-racism. And I do remember when George Floyd happened, it just really popped the lid off a lot of things for a lot of people and push it into the spotlight. Also, I think you had a question.
Yeah, I was just wondering about you found yourself on these platforms. What has been the highlight for you?
Highlights, yeah. There's been a lot, to be fair, of which I'm very honoured and proud. I'm trying to think of one, a sort of recent one. Yeah, I suppose the thing for me is difficult to pinpoint different ones because, as I said, I've been very fortunate that there's been a sort of series. I suppose the one thing I am proud of is just the kind of respect, I suppose, from my peers. I'm not really one for awards and things like that, but just the kind of respect from my peers that they will acknowledge my work, I suppose. Like I say, being of the mindset that I described when I was doing those different jobs and trying to do the best I could. I never imagined anything like how things are now. So just try and keep myself grounded, really. And, kind of what I'm really appreciative of is the kind of, the positive and constructive feedback that I get from peers and colleagues, really. So, yeah, that's probably the biggest achievement.
Oh, that's so lovely, Wayne, and we appreciate that.
Thank
And
you.
obviously, while we're on that journey of hearing about your work around anti-racism, it's only rightly so that I mentioned the BPS because I am the vice chair.
Yes, of which
Right,
we
and
are very
you are the
honoured. Yeah.
founder, which is a massive applause for you.
Yeah.
But just for our listeners as well to kind of get a sense of what is the BPS.
BPS is a collective of talented, kind of unique, skillful, knowledgeable social work professionals, all from Black and global majority communities based across England, different regions of England, and they all, in their individual, respective way, have their own kind of knowledge, skills, and expertise. When they come together as a group, I believe they just take all of that to the next level. Really, they consolidate that together and are able to kind of use all those kind of skills and knowledge and expertise for all sorts of different projects, which you'll see on the BPS webpage, whether that be podcasts, articles, webinars. There's a lot of things the BPS also do behind the scenes that kind of isn't on the website, kind of attending meetings, representing BASW England in different forums, on different platforms, etc. So the BPS really is just a collective of brilliance and excellence, I would say. And I liken it to... I can see Sherelle just nodding there, like, yeah, loving this. But it's true, and I say it purely about the group. I just kind of try to support the group the best way that I can. Okay, I had the idea, and I was sort of fortunate with that. But the group, with the people, really have taken it to the next level and multiple levels, beyond that. So, yeah, I liken the BPS to the Wu-Tang Clan, and I always say this, and I can see people in the group thinking, what's he on about? But but I really do. That was where the kind of original vision came from, because I love the Wu-Tang Clan. I've loved them since I was like a teenager, and that what I've said about sort of the individual brilliance and excellence coming together and it combining and just creating something absolutely kind of, in my mind, mesmerizing. It is. That might sound like an overstatement, but it is. So yeah, that's what the group is, and I'm really proud about it, as you can probably tell.
Yeah, no. And a special thank you to you, Wayne, just for forming that group. I've seen a lot of confidence within that group being built up in myself as an example and in others. So yeah, it was so important that we did.
Full respect to you and everybody in the group. Yeah.
And how do people become members of that group?
I wondered. Is there a process? An interview process?
All it takes is due process. The due process. That's all I'm going to say.
The due process.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So coming from that, in terms of the Black and Ethnic Minority Symposium, which Sherelle does not stop talking about, like we hear about it all the time, Wayne.
Yeah. Gosh, we got t-shirts as well,
Sherelle, where's your t-shirt?
Oh, yeah. You know what? I've worn it. We should have both worn our t-shirts, Wayne.
Yeah, that's true. That. Yeah.
I didn't want others to get upset. That's why.
I know. That's it. Yeah. Could cause a stampede.
Do you know what? That's fine. It's absolutely fine. I think probably want to talk a little bit about the Outlanders, Wayne.
Okay. Oh, yes.
And I just remember, again, like you said, the George Floyd thing happened. So I got involved around anti-racism advocacy years ago when I worked in a charity in Jamaica. But came to the UK, quietly got on with my work until George Floyd, which kind of reignited a bit of a passion and a spark.
Okay.
And remembering as well, just being so consumed by everything happening, going away, writing the article. And then I get an email from Wayne Reid saying, we're calling for submissions for this anthology. So I just want to hand over to you, Wayne, to talk about, how did that idea come about?
Yep.
What were what was happening behind the scenes? How did you choose articles?
Yeah.
Just some of what you feel comfortable sharing about that
Yeah.
project.
I think I can sort of share all of it. Again, I'll try and not give it too much detail. I have a tendency to just ramble on, but I'll try
All
and
right,
keep
go on,
No, it's
please.
fine.
This is the Wayne Reid show, so
Well,
please.
Yes,
thank
thank
you.
you.
You're too kind, but thank you. So yeah, Outlanders. Well, first of all, what I would say is what I was saying before about destiny. I really meant it. That there's been
Mm,
so many different things that have happened to me, probably throughout my life, which I've kind of noticed, but then especially from 2020, there's been so many. I think everything that I've been involved in post 2020, there's been some sort of energy behind it without wanting to sound too kind of, I am spiritual, but I don't want to over egg it. But anyway, coming with talking about Outlanders, what happened was, I think it was pre-COVID, so pre-2020. I'd met, it's quite a lot of years ago now. It's like a good 5 years ago or more. I'd met Siobhan McLean prior to George Floyd's murder and COVID at a conference where she'd had a stall. We just had a chat. I think I just joined BASW. I'd not been at BASW too long. And we were just introduced and we got on, and it was sort of like we had a good chat. And I think she mentioned at that event that she was interested in writing a book. I think she may have mentioned that at that point. And I mean, that at that point, as you can imagine, given what I've said, just seemed way beyond me. And I thought, oh, I think what I'd said actually, I think what I remember, if I remember rightly, is I'd said, oh, I'll keep an eye out for somebody who might be in that, that space, who might be able to sort of help you out with that.
Taking
Thinking,
yourself
I ain't
out
got
of
yeah.
there.
yeah, thinking, I'm just a hot potato. I've just got to pass that on. Then everything happened with COVID and George Floyd a good couple of years later. And we had a conversation again about the book. I kind of suggested that we had a conversation, and from that, Outlanders then developed. And I have to say, it was such a real joy working with Siobhan. Actually, thinking about it, I've not spoken to Siobhan in quite a while. I need to just link up and say big up, basically. Do you know what I mean? Because I've got a lot of respect for Siobhan
Yeah.
and what she does for social work. Again, she's someone I think who has done a lot in terms of the resources she's produced. It was the social work podcast that she had on YouTube for a long time as well. It was really successful. So yeah, with Outlanders, it just felt like a real kind of destiny-driven moment again, really, where Siobhan, proved herself the right person to work with on that time, on that project. And she really gave me, thinking about it, she put a lot of faith and trust in me, because actually, I suppose I did a lot of the sifting, or, we worked together around some of the sifting, but she really allowed me that kind of autonomy, I suppose, around, the black and global majority element. There was never a sense of kind of, oh, I think you should do this, or I think you should do that, or, it was just like, okay, listen to my rationale, and she'd go with my rationale. So we put out a message which Annetta kindly responded to. We had lots of other submissions as well, some really fantastic submissions, and the ones that we published, are the real kind of pinnacle, really, from that time. And it's almost like a time capsule sort of thing. Outlanders, I see it as, obviously captures post George Floyd feeling at that time, but also COVID, and that was a bit of a kind of bubble moment in itself. It sort of captures that as well. So yeah, happy days.
Yeah.
Thank you, Annetta.
Amazing.
Wow,
Amazing.
yeah. I'm just wondering what has the response been with Outlanders? I did buy one
Same.
and got it autographed as well.
Same.
Oh,
So I just wondered what's the
ah,
response from your
autographs.
end?
Yes, I mean, I feel just so. It's almost like unreal to be asked about autographs. To be honest, I have to just, yeah, it's unreal, surreal.
I kind of kicked
Yeah.
myself because I didn't, unfortunately, submit anything.
Mm.
And I know when I keep on saying to you, please have a volume 2.
Yes.
I've already said it, and we're saying it live here on the
I know,
podcast.
I
I would
know.
gladly submit
Yes,
a piece
we
of
would
that,
welcome
because I
your
would,
submission, definitely.
Advocated for yourself, huh?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Mm.
yeah.
It's nice. And
The
alongside all
time,
those types of work as well. Oh, sorry, Wayne.
Sorry. I was just going to say, I think there might be a slight delay. You might want to edit that section. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut across you.
No,
No,
I
it's
no,
just
I
fine.
want,
got you. It's fine.
It's fine.
I just wanted to say that Outlanders 2 kind of, it's just so time limited at the minute. I just don't think I could give it the energy that it deserves. But I'd love to do it at some point in the future. Yeah.
I'm
Sorry,
gonna hold you to
Sharon.
that
Yeah.
Pressure. No pressure.
one whatsoever.
Yeah. I
Could
mean,
be-
how... Go on, Rose.
I was just saying, could be thoughts for another book in another format or something else.
Yes.
Rose volunteering. I think that's the Rose's volunteering herself to maybe support with that.
Oh, is that what that? Okay. All right, Rose. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
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 I mean, the thing is, I really want to do it justice if I did that again, and I'm just not sure I could do that at the moment. I couldn't devote the time just because there's so much other stuff going on, and I think that also there's plenty of other very able people out there who can build on that, as well. So yeah, I think that some things it's sort of time to pass the baton on, and that would be one possibly. Yeah.
No. And we didn't bring Wayne on this show to pressure him into writing.
My arm's
I
been
couldn't help myself.
I know. It was such a lovely idea,
Yeah.
such good
Oh,
reading
thank
that,
you.
we can really help ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's some people who got left out of it
I
are
know.
hoping they could be involved in it.
Of
And
course.
it just shows you how good it was, Wayne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah,
I know.
all the authors on there, every piece in its own way, I think just is just sort of unique, but also just crystallizes that moment. As I was saying, 2020, 2021, around that time, different world now, isn't it really? And it was a different world before that.
Yeah.
Just that window,
Yeah.
I do think Outlanders captures that nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know exactly what you mean, Wayne, because like I said, I don't watch the news because I find it quite depressing. And I think it just somehow kind of affects your mental health, I think. But
I would agree.
when and I still haven't watched the full video of what happened with George Floyd. But when it happened, I couldn't stop watching the television. I wasn't watching the actual video because I found it too traumatic. But I couldn't get my eyes off the television. And I was so bottled up at the time that the only way I knew how to process it was just to write it down.
Yeah.
So I understand what you mean when you say it's a bit of a time capsule. It's almost as if there were things that were captured around that time that in a way it's like it's kind of no way to recreate that unless maybe something major happens again. But I just think it was such a unique time.
Yeah.
It was.
It was. And it did kickstart a lot of different movements around anti-racism. And a little bit more on that, Wayne, just wanting to hear a bit more about some of the other work and projects that you're doing around anti-racism. So we know you have a list of other things that you're working on. So tell us a bit more. What else are you working on, Wayne?
Do you mean sort of what I've worked on? Do you mean what I've worked on or what I'm working on at the moment?
What you've worked on, so let's start with what you've worked on, and then we'll probably towards the end get to what you're working on. What are some of the future projects that you're working on?
Yeah, okay. I mean, it's always busy times, really. And I would say over the last 5 years, it's been very intensive on different fronts. But generally, I've tried to categorize the stuff that I've been involved in my mind at least, into policy, practice, and education, strictly within social work. So I've not tried to speak about anti-racism outside of that specifically, although I've drawn on different things. But that's been the main focus because really that's sort of what I feel I know. And obviously working at BASW and having a strong team behind me, that's the kind of the emphasis really of just keeping it strictly on social work. So in terms of policy, I sit on the independent advisory group for the social work RES, or the Workforce Race and Equality Standards, which you'll be familiar with. I'm just going to list these names and hopefully people will kind of online. I know some of it might not appeal to everybody, but I'm really sort of proud to represent BASW England on that group. So that group works with Skills for Care around the deployment and implementation of the RES, really, and gathering data around Black and global majority social workers and people who work in that field around disciplinary, recruitment, retention, all that sort of stuff. Real sort of number crunching so we can get to the evidence and the facts and hopefully mobilize anti-racism and make it, make that framework mandatory. So that's one area of policy, for example. Some of the practice stuff I've been involved in has been around resources, so creating different resources to hopefully educate, empower and equip social workers and the workforce. So that's been things around, there was a newsletter that I had called Wayne's Weekly that ran for a few years. Where I tried to keep that sort of light, hopefully, and a bit sort of energetic. But that captured different sort of news and information to keep people informed and hopefully, like I say, equipped and empowered. So that was something that ran for a few years. BPS we've talked about, Outlanders. There's also a mini series called the Synergy Sessions that I'm working on with members of the BPS and members of the Professional Capabilities and Development Group at BASW. So a real cross-section of professionals, again, who've got a real wealth of knowledge, skills and expertise. We've looked at different subjects around critical thinking, anti-racism within a university setting, and we had an episode on Black leadership. We're currently working on an episode to do with looking after your practice educator. And so, it's like, just, I suppose there's just so many different things that I could talk to you about really in terms of anti-racism. But I suppose I should emphasize that as much as I've got an obvious passion for it, I had a specific role at BASW for a year officially, and a kind of year before that unofficially. And so my specialism within that area really has kind of, that window has been and gone. And so now my role is more generic as a professional officer. So there's all sorts of other work that I'm involved in that isn't necessarily anti-racism specific, if that makes sense.